Hi there, I hope you are doing well. A couple of days ago, I received some news that was a bit of a bombshell. I learned that not just one, but two of my friends and coworkers had given their notice, and they happened to do it on the exact same day. Now, that wasn't planned, it just happened to work out that way. That was a bit of a tough day for me. I am genuinely happy for both of them. I think that the decisions that they have made are exactly the right things that they should both be doing. So I am so happy and excited for both of them. But selfishly, I am sad for me because these changes, while great for them, are not so good for me. So then I got to thinking, can two very opposing emotions coexist, especially tied to the same scenario or the same event? And the answer is absolutely yes, they can. We can feel both happiness and sadness at the same time in relation to the same thing. When that happens, when we have two very conflicting emotions simultaneously, that can cause a bit of stress. But how we deal with that can actually help us to be more resilient and better able to handle difficult situations in the future. What we shouldn't do, which you will often hear, and I'm all for positivity and looking at the positive side of things, looking for that silver lining, I'm always all about that. However, when we try to do that too quickly, right out of the gate, without acknowledging or processing the unpleasant emotions that may also be present, it's actually not such a good thing because those unpleasant emotions, while we try to ignore them and kind of push them away, they don't go away. It's like a young child tugging at your pant leg going, Mommy, Mommy, Mommy. Ignoring that young child is not going to make them go away. What's going to happen? They're just going to get louder and louder until you actually pay attention and do something. Those unpleasant emotions, if you don't deal with them, do the exact same thing. So what we actually need to do is be present with them and just sit with it, just be for a little bit. It really helps to acknowledge them and actually verbalize what you are feeling, put a name to it. For example, I feel angry because. I feel sad because. That helps us to process them so then we no longer need those emotions. They can actually go away and then we can focus on the good things, the silver lining, whatever the good parts of that same situation might be. And sometimes in processing our emotions, we may even need to cry a little bit. I hadn't actually cried in a long time, but 2 days ago, I did. And not just because of my two friends that are leaving, but some other things that I had stuffed down and tried to ignore and push away that I shouldn't have that needed to come out. And so it all came out at once. And do you know why we feel better after we cry? It's one of the body's ways of shedding stress and allowing our bodies and our minds to come back into balance. Cortisol, the stress hormone, which has negative effects when it circulates for too long, it actually comes out in our tears. There's little cortisol in our tears. So that's a great thing. It's our body's way of getting rid of that stress, physically removing it, so that we can feel better and come back into balance. So don't be afraid to shed a tear every now and then when you need to. Should it be every day? Probably not. But every so often, it is very beneficial. And I can't stand it when I hear people say things like, big girls don't cry or real men never cry. I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. Everyone needs to cry once in a while. It's beneficial, it is therapeutic, it's good for you. I don't have a question for you today, just some encouragement that when situations arise that do present some unpleasant emotions, don't be afraid to just sit with them. Just be. Don't feel like you have to all of a sudden be positive right away and just pretend like those negative emotions don't exist. Just be with them. Put a name to it. Acknowledge it and say, I feel this way because. Cry if you need to. Process it. Let it go. And when they're done, then you can focus on the good parts and focus on the positivity. I hope you have a happy Halloween. Take care of yourself, be safe, and I will see you soon.